Welcome back to the absolute most professional StarCraft 2 with the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran in the red, the man, the myth, the Maru. Facing off against the fastest player in the game and the former world champion, the Zerg in blue, the Italian stallion. We have Reynor in a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg showdown as part of the $50,000 Thunderfire All-Stars Invitational. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Help me out of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? Jimmy. 1,782 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in, and make sure the Lings are going to have an uncomfortable and hopefully short day. But of course, Reynor is no stranger to this early back and forth, as the Zergling's getting a surprising event. The Queen comes out. He gets a Zergling kill, but will be unable to prevent any early creep tumors. I always question so many things, but specifically here, the commitment of the first Reaper, taking so much damage you can't do any more delay. Is it really worth killing one defenseless, passive Zergling? I don't think so, but Terrans seem to think otherwise. Maru unable to stop the early creep spread, but he will keep tabs. Reynor slipped out, took a drone, and started his third in a timely fashion. His Zergling speed actually a little delayed, like many Zergs will do when they see an opportunity to get that third base early. Usually getting enough gas to get the speed, but not using the minerals in order to make sure you have enough of that. No, it's not going to be enough. Yeah. Ooh, one more grenade might do it. So close to slicing out that creep tumor, but again, the Reaper rebuffed without any sort of permanent damage. The emotional scars will never heal. Third command center on the way, slapped down as part of what could be eventually considered a wall at the natural, but for now is just a fraction of it. Significant part, but still. A Banshee, the 1-1-1, the barracks, the factory, the starport to cover all your bases and make sure theirs are uncomfortable. The Hellions to zone out the early Zerglings. The Banshees to deny any opportunity to move off the creep without potentially committing your units to death. So, it's been a staple for about half of both these players' lives. Two of the, well, I guess Maru isn't as young as he used to be, but none of us are. Begging the question of, how's the back pain? But moving on, as we all do. Cloak on the way as well. He's thinking about it. He's thinking hard. The Reaper scouting ahead. The Hellions looking for an opportunity, but it was indeed a trap. There's plenty of Zerglings to deal with this small chunk of Terran, and it's almost like he was baiting him into that situation. But Maru knows that 2 Hellions on the edge of the creep are worth 4 in the unit's loss tab. At least according to most math. Honestly, losing those Hellions, you really have to get a lot of damage done. Because it's not just about the drones you kill now, it's about the lack of map control as time goes on. And without the early Hellions and Banshees, before all your production comes online, which will be quite a while, because Maru is going for 3cc, double engineering bay, and an armory. He's trying to have his cake, eat it too, and then develop an entirely new cake before building any units. This is about as greedy as you can possibly get while pretending not to be. Not that Reynor is going to be able to do anything about it. He doesn't have that knowledge. He doesn't have that information. He doesn't even have an overlord on this side of the map. Did he end up losing one, sending it in? It appears so. And he's seen, well, yeah. There's a whole bunch of Hellions, and maybe a Hellbat push to cover for the lack of anything else behind. The Cloak Banshees. The lair is done. Overseer's on the way, but... Oh, is it getting hot in here, Susan? Not now, Brenda! I don't... Sorry. There you go. Well, the Hellbats are burninating through the mineral line. Some of the Marines get cut off, but it's all about the mechanical units on the front lines here. The Queens eating the line of fire. 2 of them incinerated right off the bat. The Banelings are rolling in. Reynor anticipating this, getting the Banes out in time. The Hellbat count has been whittled down to 4 as they awkwardly waddle their way across the map, somehow more awkwardly than the Queens, at least till they get off the creep. The slowest chase in StarCraft 2. Meanwhile, the Zerglings will outstrip them. They get to the other side. The door is open. but he shuts it in the face of the Lings and a single SCV caught on the wrong side of history. So, superficial damage. The Hellbats and a Banshee taken down. Only 2 drones have been eliminated, so the Zerglings will get into the main, and they will spot literally everything. The fact that Maru was being so obscenely greedy. The fact that he's already... Wait, did they see that? They saw the 4th command center as well. So Reynor knows he's perfectly happy, and he's completely safe to get an absolutely obscene economy. He's going to have not 4, but 5 bases, and technically 6 hatcheries with a macro hatch on the way. A Hydralisk den is about to complete. The creep spread is already extending over almost half the map, despite the efforts of those early units. And the first medevacs are only now coming out at 7.5 minutes, which is quite late in the grand scheme of things. So Reynor has double Spore Crawler in the main. Usually quite an investment, but can you put a price on safety and security? In this case, it's 125 minerals if you include the drone, and even more if you include the drone mining over time. Spore Quellers are not cheap. Okay, I think they always get... The value of a drone actually mining is understated. You can't just build 3-4 spores and be safe, because that lack of economy may make you less safe in the long run. Not now, though. Not in this situation. This was not a good example. I just thought it was worth saying. As Reynor has everything he wants, and he knows. Maru transforms to Hellbat mode, and he'll be jammed into a corner. Reynor putting him there. The Hellbats will roast the Zerglings, but not enough to take out a critical mass of them. The Banshee is doing a surprising amount of damage as the Queen's amble across the only area without creep. Maru scanning in the top left. Bottom left, sorry. I don't know how I got that turned around, but... realizing he might need to put some sort of pressure on. 99 drones for Reynor. 99! That is too many! And never enough. He's making one more. I feel like there's a tiny chance he saw he had 99 drones, though he just used a couple more for buildings. He's like, let's keep it 100. Which does sound like something Reynor would do, but 184 to 139 supply, but the army supplies are still heavily in favor of the Zerg. Maru setting up the 4th base to the southern side of the map, making sure we're all close and cozy here. And will definitely increase the intensity. As Terran, the school of thought of expanding towards your opponent and using it as a staging area for further attacks is it's a sound strategy. But if the attacks go poorly, the counterattacks come quickly. So, burrowed Banes underneath. The Banshee is taken down by a moot of queens. And Maru's still not putting together a direct attack, but instead deciding to split off some of the units to the north. Surprised we don't see burrowed Zerglings for scouts, but Reynor either spotted or anticipated this. Maru's attempts to divide and conquer will be met with more than enough Zerg. The only risk is if Maru gets close to maxing out and Reynor can only have 104 army supply because he has 96 drones. His economy is insane right now. 4,300 minerals a minute. 1,350 gas. It is about the maximum economy you could ever feasibly get in StarCraft 2. The main base still isn't even close to mining out, and he's got 5 mining bases in total. This is the maximum income. We'll see if it's enough. Maru, not slouching. He's got 84 SCVs, which is also arguably too many, especially with now realizing Burrow is done. He's battening down the hatches. The siege tanks scattered throughout. Not so many of them that they're a huge part of the army composition, but 7 or 8 to hold things down. Putting together almost... Wow, look at that. That's Factorio base right there. I should play some more. I'm actually leaning towards Dyson Sphere program again, but I digress. That one's truly a StarCrafting game. Wish they would have updated it. When are they going to go to what? Moving on! Not the time! Takes way too much time. No. Well, the upgrades are on the way. Which ones, Winter? Well, I'm glad you asked. We got Adrenal Glands, +3 Carapace, Pneumatized Carapace, Seismic Spines, Nanomuscular Swell, Melee Attack Upgrade. Okay, let me talk in plain and more realistic terms. Overlord speed, +3 Carapace, Lurker, Rage, Hydra Lunge, +2 melee, and Adrenal Glands. 3/3 infantry weapons and armor for Maru. As the map just gets more and more covered by creep, Reynor has taken the rest of the bases. He's taken the north. Maru held down into his quadrant, but he's got multiple planetary fortresses. Is it enough to withstand the onslaught of the Zerg? Because Reynor will have everything in the bank. He'll have a ridiculous amount of production. And even more to support it. Interesting that Reynor has not attempted to break these. We've only seen... It's almost no rush. Obviously, we had that skirmish with the Hellbats and Banshees, which if Reynor wasn't so obviously prepared, could have been pretty devastating. But Maru has fully retreated into his shell. And it's going to be up to Reynor to crack it open. And here we go. The first wave of Lings and Banes goes into the double planetary fortress. Gonna blast easily through. The Banelings rolling by to maximize that HP. Both planetaries down. Takes out the siege. Awkward parking spot over here as Reynor now mining from the base. Maru is attempting to land at, which certainly creates some unhappy discussions, especially for the Terrans. But the Iron Bank of orbital commands. 5 orbitals right now. A single basic plant. It's not the overwhelming amount of orbital commands that give you the ability to have map hacks with extra steps. But it's certainly not a small number. Meanwhile, though, Reynor still at 93. 93 drones. Again, that means his army supply is relatively small. And the 300 supply style of Zerg is quite literal here. You send 100 supply of army, you lose it, trade it away, and then you build another 100. He's got 43 larvae in the bank. He's got a couple Vipers now to work with as well. The upgrades tab taking up an uncomfortable amount of the screen, but we're almost completed on many parts of the tech tree in record time, really. Only 13 minutes into the game, but here come the first Vipers. Off to the left side. Even some drones in the army. Banelings rolling through. Blinding cloud on the tanks. Banelings past the front line into the Marauders. Marines microing back. Venn diagram of freedom. And the Ghosts line up their shots. And Banelings will blast through some of the Ghosts. He managed it mid-fight. And the scan was actually too far forward to spot it. We got high-sec auto-tracking. We got building on. We got Blue Flame. +3 mech weapons. Just assume the upgrades are happening. Another wave, 40 Banelings, as Reynor again and again and again refilling the edge of tomorrow here, but he's not running out of minerals today. 188 Zerglings, which really seems very low, but those are rookie numbers. I'm sure he can pump them up. Now, a single base, a normal base with 8 blue mineral patches and 2 greens. We're going to do some math in a moment. Not now, though. The Liberator's not going to bother yanking him out. Parasitic Bomb onto the Medivacs. And Widowmine slams into the Overseers. Another command center. Another set of Burrowed Banes. And a whole lot of Banelings vulnerable here. A pre-scan from Maru. Still has those 5 orbitals. So a single base has about 11,000 minerals and exactly 4,500 gas. That is the number. Reynor will easily have at least 1 more base over Maru, maybe 2. So far, Maru has lost only 4,000 less resources. It is very clear Maru is trying to bring us to that more strategical half-map scenario. Big job, huh? A single SCV repairing, whereas Reynor is trying to avoid it at heavy cost. Banelings from the south as well. Rolling all the way through, getting into the meaty center, chasing down the Ghosts, which are cloaked, but the planetary and multiple siege tanks will avoid the Ghosts being chased down entirely. 94 more, 100 Zerglings, and counting. Reynor building up another wave. Maru down to 150 supply. The defenses are crumbling as the most cinematic and lore-accurate style of Zerg. Remember, Reynor also has the Lurker upgrade. He was going to try to make some Banelings up there. He has the Lurker upgrades. I think Reynor's now remembering that. He actually canceled the Lurkers. Maybe he thought he was selecting Zerglings for more Banelings. But another wave of Banelings, as Reynor is mining from Maru's former base at the 6 o'clock. But again, well, the unit's loss tab widens. But still, Reynor with 6k in the bank coming in for another round. Looking to smash this planetary before the mules can even complete one cycle of mining. The banelings continue rolling by, pulls back as he gets to the siege line. Another 15 SCVs dead. Another couple dozen supply of Marines and Marauders. But again, Maru, bent, but not broken. He's building a couple Widow Mines, siege tanks, and medevacs, barely building any bio as part of the composition. And Reynor has seen no need to transition into another army, which he's still dealing with a majority ground-based composition. What we are missing, potentially, are infestors, and potentially, and dare I say, broodlords. Broodlords were technically buffed in the newest patch a few months ago, kind of. They now attack most reliably at their max range. Before, they really struggled to do so. It was actually a bug, but it remained unfixed. Oh, Widow Mines take a massive chunk. The Ghosts will fall back. The Banelings going into a concave of siege tanks, but still so many rolling through. Blinding Cloud, not enough. Marauders, not enough. But the Ghosts are able to pull back at the last moment. Doesn't quite kill. Did he notice? The Baneling Mine is a little off-center. He settles for killing one Ghost. But wait a second. I feel like he just jumped the shark with that attack. Of all the times, now Raider's lost 10,000 more resources, including 2,000 more gas. Not to be a bean counter, but I think we're entering that phase. As that was by far the least effective attack, and most importantly, it didn't hit the economy. This entire time, Reynor has been playing whack-a-mole with those bases, where every time a base goes up, he smashes it down. But here he went for the army, and he didn't find it. Maru also split off a force to the south. The bank is drying up. This is the old school style of Reynor that is both entertaining to watch and very risky, because if one more fight goes that same direction so inefficiently, then Maru's right back in it. But the Viper's coming in, blinding Cloud before the Ghost can get anywhere close. Looking for another opportunity with the Viper will instead find the unit's lost tab. The base does get smashed. But again, the army finding diminishing returns. An Infestor in production. 64 more Zerglings. What's the count now? 537. 200 Banes. And those are just the Banes who died before they got their attacks off. Because Banelings who attack succeeded. They weren't lost. But they do still show up as resources lost. That's why there might be a disparity. But I'm not doing that math. So now, it's 12,000. One base more of minerals. And more than one gas geyser of gas. This feels like Zerg Wars. It kind of is. The infinite Zerg against the increasingly stalwart Terran with a stronger and stronger setup and composition. Reynor finally acknowledging that maybe he needs to shift into a less attrition-based tactic. A Spire. And it's not for Mutas, but instead Corruptors or maybe Broodlords. Though Broodlords are required to be en masse. You need enough Broodlords that the Ghosts can't just line up their shots. Like maybe you might interrupt 2 or 3 Ghosts. And hello, darkness, my old friend. Come to bother me again. The Zerg are always creeping. Infestor, Broodlord, the endgame. Oh. Well, no matter how many times, no matter how many years, how many decades, the Zerg try to avoid it, especially Reynor. At some point, you transition to Infestor Broodlord, or die trying. The question is it too little and too late? As Reynor, the greater Spire in production. Maru will take out multiple bases and outlying bases as well. We're still relatively early in. The main base is almost mined out of gas. The natural still has some minerals. It's not the end times, but it is the supreme late game, as Maru has managed to establish another base. Reynor has lost 17,000 more resources. And when you continually roll and try to punch through the most entrenched position in almost campaign level fashion, eventually you suffer from those diminishing returns that have forced out the Broodlords. By no means is this Maru's game to lose, by the way. Reynor still has the bank, he has the upgrades, he has the composition, though he's not upgrading the air. A Nidus spotted immediately. We've seen a severe lack of them, not a single lurker, but the infestors are now on the field en masse. He doesn't have to be stingy with the fungals here. The Nidus is taken out by the siege tank. Maru has +3/2 and working on +3 armor for mech. Obviously 3/3 for his bio army. And the Broodlords have arrived. How many ghosts? 12 ghosts, 0 Vikings. So the anti-air, and now it's a lot of Hellbats, which have kind of snuck back into the composition underneath. A much more bio-curious army here out of Maru, as he's invested so heavily in those mechanical units, which are just so much more supply efficient in the late game. The Broodlords sneaking their way back. The Hydra's looking for some anti-air capability. The Infestors, this might be the time for Microbial Shroud. Remember that? No one has in months. Ever since we got a new upgrade for it, it's been completely deleted from the meta, as Infestor energy is precious. And if it's not EMP'd, it's needed for fungal. Or Neural Parasite, which there's a lot of good options. And using Neural Parasite to potentially dismantle Liberators is a real choice. 3 Thors on the way, another Nidus in the main, and this time there's nothing close to defend. A big mistake out of Maru not leaving the Nidus defense team back at home. He's scrambling back, but Ghost can't stim this patch. The Zerglings will get into the main, and Reynor retaking the initiative. The Zerglings might be able to take out the Ghost Academy. Burrowing some more in the main. Reynor retaking the 6 o'clock position, but there's a chance Maru can take the 12. Multiple parasitic bombs, though unfortunately, no... What happened to the... Did he shoot it with a ghost? Oh no, the EMPs on every single infestor, which means he has nothing to interrupt the snipes besides just, you know, ripping the ghosts apart with Zerglings. The Broodlords working on the planetary fortress will eventually get through it. The Zerglings pushing the ghosts back. And the Broods prying open the defense. Though there's still little to no anti-air, as Reynor being painfully neglectful of direct and no corruptors, very few Hydras, no energy on the infestors, and then there was one. One Broodlord survives that exchange. The Lord of the Brood. Now he's consuming the exhausted gas geysers, which is, you know, there's no other use for him at this stage. Some Zerglings trying to counterattack. 760 Zerglings dead and counting. Not including the Banelings, which are in the hundreds as well. Those siege tanks racking up the kills. The creep still very strong throughout the map. 7 orbital commands now. Widowmine still finding opportunities, getting on top of the tanks, relying on the tanks to do terrible damage to themselves. And an exhausting game. And we're not that much close. So Reynor feels like he's losing momentum. But the infestors, if they get enough energy for Neural Parasite, losing all the energy was very rough. There's no way to quickly regain it. But Neural Parasite, if you can't beat them, borrowing them is a better trick. And Thors are a premium target for Neural Parasite. There's still 10 ghosts, but none of them with this army, unless the cloaking devices have gotten insanely good. Here come the blinding clouds. The parasitic bomb actually is the choice, which means the Thors are still firing, but against the Hydraling Bane, not so incredible. And able to dismantle the Thors, knock out the siege tanks, and Reynor has taken a 50 supply lead. A brutal war of attrition, but now that he's taken out the army for the umpteenth time, he's knocked Maru back to 120 supply. He doesn't know exactly how bad it is, despite the Widow Mine racking up dozens of kills, but he knows Maru can't refill that army. He would not be committing on the field with it if he had the reinforcements. But the ghosts were completely out of position. The infestors are all committed. There is a single missile turret on the way. These infestors need the neural parasite, and they may get it in time. He doesn't see it, but he borrows the army in every single one of the tanks, and they're a great counter to the ghosts. What a play! He lines them up, and he knocks them down. Alley-oops the ghosts into oblivion, but he does lose every single infestor. The very first lurkers as well will be committed to the fight. And they're breaking through. A few ghosts actually managed to line up their shots. He gets one more siege tank, but Maru's at 75 supply. Reynor is struggling for income now in ways he hasn't this entire game. That one Brood Lord has survived through all this. There's not enough energy on the ghost to snipe. And Maru is down to 500 minerals per minute. Reynor a fraction of the economy he once had. The flood of minerals has devolved into a trickle, and that trickle is drying up one way or another. Looks like the Hellbats will try to force it along, but Hydra's more than enough to deal with it. The medevac is taken down. Reynor, he did lose every single infestor. That is a devastating loss there, despite the wins otherwise. But the ghosts, there's no anti-air but the ghosts. The Brood Lord, no! After all this time! And there's no spellcasters to back it up. Reynor is at 122 supply. The army supplies are dead even. And that is a fully upgraded mech army. 3-3-3-3 across the board for absolutely everything. Finally, some corruptors trying to go back to the Brood Lords. Reynor is mining from the bottom right corner yet again. Let's look at the total minerals mined. 74,000, 17,000 more for Reynor. But only 3,000 more gas. He has lost 20,000 more minerals, though, including 1,000 Zerglings, however many Banes. This base mining it all is massive. Maru dropping... He retook the center, the top center. That is a relatively fresh location. And Reynor desperately needs to deny it. But he also wants to defend his base to the south. The Hellbats, the unsung heroes, or so they claim. The Hellbat's a mineral-only unit, freeing up precious Vespi gas for anything else. He snipes out one of the lurkers, he's yanking in ghosts. The armies dwindle in size, and the intensity only rises with it. 122 supply, dead even. Which is usually not great for the Zerg, but he loses another base. The Brood Lords in a single infestor, and it's just siege tanks to defend. Hellbats and siege tanks suffer. They're vertically challenged. Tilt me over. That's not how it works, siege tank. The Brood Lords will deny the base. Maru was able to blast out some more minerals with those mules. I need something more dramatic than just mine. It feels more important here. The infestor unburrowed in the middle of the fight. Marines are back. Vikings being added in. What a fight. The Broodlords being driven back. The Queens will patch the Broodlords back up as they stutter flap their way across. The Hydra's holding the line. The Vipers wandering through it will just kind of die. Oh no! And the siege tanks and Hellbats are slowly but surely grinding their way across the map. The Broodlords are knocked out of the sky. The siege tanks will siege. But what is there left to challenge them? We're under 100 supply. And Reynor has not been able to keep his spellcasters together. The Vipers flying every which way. The crowbar to dismantle that tightly curated composition of Terran has been lost. The infestors are gone. Something that could have turned them against one another, or at least held them down for long enough to put together an attack. And now Maru, for maybe the first time in 30 minutes, has a supply lead. Reynor has lost 80,000 resources, which I think is over half the resources on the entire map. And what's left? He's long-distance mining. The creep is still spreading. What's left of it? But Reynor is both metaphorically and literally out of gas. There's still pretty barely mined gas geysers to the north. 15 minutes ago, if you asked me who would be running out of resources at this stage, well, if you said the game went on 15 more minutes, I might have guessed correctly, but Maru has held the line, and I think Reynor, a couple too many attacks, a couple too many 300 supply attempts, has left him with nothing but Zerglings and dreams. And those dreams are now nightmares. A single lurker, the survivors here, the final brood, but the heart of the swarm is about to be ripped out. He doesn't have enough. There's one brood, one lurker, 2 Gs. Maru holds in one of the most brutal, exhausting, painful, and beautiful games. Maru, a specialist, probably better, or at least equal with Clem in these extreme late game scenarios, and Reynor clearly did not want to go there. He lost 15 hatcheries. He lost more hatcheries than most Silver League players build the entire season. And unfortunately, he lost control of the map. And not too long after, the game. But we've limit tested the Terran versus Zerg. And we didn't even mine out the map. We got close, but the question is, can Reynor turn it around? Can he acknowledge that against Maru, maybe he's too used to playing against Clem in those high action, just full back and forth boxing matches, but Maru is different. All right, Maru is much more methodical. He's willing to give up the momentum to regain it in the long run. I think it's partially pragmatic, as Maru historically, and it seems like it's always the Korean Terrans, has had wrist issues where he literally, it's physically, I know, I'm not, it seemed to coincide with that being a regular thing, that he kind of transitioned from that high-speed multitasking Terran to the best late-game Terran in the world. But he certainly has the practice with that supreme endgame turtle style. And if Reynor was going to keep throwing units at him, and that was very skin of his weird Zerg teeth there, if one of those attacks had gone marginally better, Maru's dead. If Maru had committed an army and lost it before Reynor started mining out, Maru's dead. If the infestors had stayed alive for another fight, or if they hadn't all got, like, there's so many small moments, or larger ones, where Maru was one bad fight away. Reynor may have been one bad fight away, but it took 10 more minutes to realize it. And I still think he didn't quite get out of the mindset of the attrition-based Zerg into the extreme cost efficiency of Infestor Broodlord. But sometimes slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Maru 1-0. We're going into Taito Citadel. We'll see if Reynor can adjust. I think this map a little bit easier to find those sort of fights. The outlying gold base or the top right corner base are so far away from any other bases on the map. It's almost impossible for Terran to ever take them. If we get to that stage, I don't think it's unlikely. $99 drones. Beautiful to see. Maybe too many. Honestly, the late game style we see the most now is that masked lurker with Nidus. Eventually finding, like, you just 2, 3 Nidus. Okay, alright, he gets the drone in there. But building 2 or even 3 Nidus networks to almost guarantee you'll be able to get one in. But unable to worm his way through. I think there was one, and it only had Zerglings in it, not lurkers, so. Maru building the 3rd command center. I guess trying to hide it a little bit. Less likely to be scouted, but Reynor's actually headed that direction. And it was such a greedy build out of Maru. Of course, Reynor took that knowledge and used it to his advantage. Maru went for 3 CCs and double engineering bay armory before any additional production. This time around, it's going to be 3 CCs and double barracks. So a 3-2-1-1 to put on some much earlier marine and medevac pressure. So not breaking out the mech that he's been known to do recently. In fact, against Reynor specifically. Instead, it's just going to be the bio yet again. Last game ended up more mech than bio by the end, which kind of turning into that Brood War style of Terran versus Zerg, which to my understanding is Marines and medics up until it's siege tanks, vultures, and science vessels. And kind of the equivalent here being siege tanks, hellbats, and ghosts as the late game, with ghosts serving a lot of the same purpose that science vessels do in the Brood War. That late game spellcaster you can build en masse to melt away Zerg in pesky locations. Reaper, Hellion headed out. Interesting that Maru not even really bothering with keeping the Reaper on the edge of things. Past the early scout, at least. Wow. Is this going to be another Hellbat push? He hasn't started an armory yet, but he's building a medevac right off the bat. So, been well. Can tell what the Hellions were. 3rd base is already landing. Did Reynor? Reynor's... the Overlord was 1 pixel away from spotting it. But it didn't see it, and what he doesn't know can very much hurt him. The map is dark. And full of Terrans. But... it doesn't matter too much now. As the first push, with a surprising amount of Marines, he's got an armory on the way, at an awkward timing. It makes me feel like he forgot it. Though, Hellions themselves might be better than just having the Hellbats out in front. We will see. Reynor trying to take a 4th base. The attack coming forward. Baneling Nest is not completed. So, Hellbats would actually be a deadly choice. And he's going to cancel the 4th command center. Sorry. I don't know why I said command center. Hatchery. Meanwhile, the 3rd command center, going to be under attack from the Zerglings, gets a couple of the SCVs. A couple more Hellions come out. Maru looking the other way for a moment, but rotating around, clearing up the creep in between the bases, though could be a bit more diligent. And in fact, the Zerglings will cancel the supply depot and kill 3 SCVs. The Queens will gather in solidarity against the Terrans, and their internal strife mostly forgotten, at least for this moment. We'll see. Hellions, the medevac, a potential threat, especially could use to heal the Hellbats. And the same way you can't heal Hellions, which is always quite a curiosity. Reynor with a few Banelings ready to counterattack. Maru puts up the wall just in time. Maybe even anticipates that. Well, that's awkward. Uh-oh, wanders right through. The Hellbat's a little slow, but cancels both depots and gets some SCVs as well. Not a bad take. Meanwhile, 1-1 is nearly completed for Maru. Once again, speed running those upgrades. Well, Reynor, he does have a lair, and he does have double Evo, but he hasn't yet started that set of 1-1 upgrades, which means Maru will have almost an entire upgrade advantage. The Zerg and Terran upgrades are identical in the amount of time they take per tier. So pretty easy to tell who's going to have a lead if he keeps up on it. And obviously the armory is already completed. So Maru successfully kept Reynor kind of contained with this half-hearted Hellion push. He's kept control of the creep. He delayed the 4th base. But back at home, he was more focused on the infrastructure. We got barracks 4 and 5 coming together. A 2nd factory at the 3rd base and a 4th command center at the 2nd. 2-2 upgrades have already begun. So far, losses incredibly minimal, but that will change soon. As the longer these players have to build up, the more dramatic the eventual exchange will be. That's simply how the game works. Meanwhile, the Zerglings, but the Hellions paying attention. A few Marines as well, but the Hellions ready for the counterattack, and it really feels like Maru has prepared for Reynor. And Reynor's usual tactics of backstabbing and trying to drown the Terran in units are just not going to be as successful. What Maru might not have in the multitasking speed, which he still has the speed, let's be clear. He has in being prepared. It's much easier to be in the right spot before the right time than to scramble into it later. And Queens. Would you get out of the way? You're all... Lucille, have you put on some weight lately? We are identical twins, Brenda. Doesn't feel that way. How dare you? Sorry, I whacked out for a moment, but the Zerglings gonna get a wraparound, but they spot the Marines, and Maru keeping the pressure on bottom left corner base. The gold base, obviously a lucrative one. And Maru so far has been able to exert himself on both sides with relatively minimal investment. But Reynor, 85 drones, a more manageable number. And he's nearly maxed out. Hive just started. There's no reason for Reynor to stay at home. He's gonna go on the attack. Drops out again. Marines regretting that. One of the few maps that has a centralized watchtower. Reynor can see the entire central attack path. And not just because of the creep, but the watchtower itself covers for all of that. It's very rare nowadays to have that because siege tanks exist. But interesting to have one in the pool at the very least. 5th base for Reynor is online. Hive is halfway there. Lurker Den just started. And again, Maru is keeping himself out there. Keeping what he can at bay. It seems like he's once again hardening the shell. Does he have a Ghost Academy? He has 10 barracks. So, no Ghost Academy. Building Widow Mines with Drilling Claws. He's got 3-3 started. Reynor only has +2 attack on the way because he finished +2 Carapace. The Banelings thinned out by the Widow Mines. Some more. Yeah. A set of burrow. There's no way he didn't see that, right? It was right underneath the medevac. He burrowed those Banes, but kind of an awkward position on the very bottom of the... Really? Oh, he sees it. Though still loses some units because of the position. The Widow Mines, the Queen's pushing forward. Though not making it much easier. The Overseers may be a little late. The Widow Mine gonna fire. Take a few Hydras and a bunch of Banes with it. Very lucky for Maru. Meanwhile, the siege tanks driving back another swath of Zerglings over to the left side. And this time around, Reynor's going to speed right towards that late-game Lurker Nidus. He's not investing nearly as much in the all-out attack. I think maybe learning his lesson. But still not going to let Maru have too much progress out on the map. Surrounding the Marauders, drawing out the Widow Mine hits, and easily able to refill this instantaneously. Maru dips 30 supply. A very mediocre trade, to say the least. 50 more Zerglings in production. Nidus nearly complete. And Reynor again with an absolutely obscene economy. Maru close enough with the mules as well. He's also at 83 SCVs. And neither player has mined out of their main. Again, an incredibly high economy stage of the match. Now we see how committed Reynor is. Maru has a full set of sensor towers, giving him full coverage of every potential attack path by land or sea or air. but straight down the center. Another wave of banelings blasting into the planetary. It's taken out. Banelings roll up. Siege tanks on the high ground exposed. The Zerglings will rip them apart. And he gets Zerglings into the third. He's burrowing them every which way. Gonna make it that much more difficult to dislodge. And Reynor has set the ground here. The groundwork, if you would, for a potential multi-pronged Nidus play. Look at that map. He has, what, he has the map. Again, very similar to Ruby Rock. But there's 0 ghosts and 0 ghost academies. Usually one precludes the other. Maru has gone. Maru's Marine, Marauder, Medevac, Mine, tank composition is meandering meticulously across the map, but the momentum, mostly in Reynor's favor. Maru still with a lot of supply, but the third base is overrun. 7 more SCVs dead. 96 drones now for Reynor, but he's just bashing down the door. He's knocking hard on it, and Maru's answer is quite lacking so far. The mass production. Meanwhile, the queens! Get off my creep! But Brenda, what the Watch yourself, Susan. I am. Sorry. The queens themselves take down the entire attack in the bottom left corner. Maybe there were some Zerglings. There aren't anymore. But here comes Reynor. Over and over and over again. And he's getting damage on core bases. The first 4 bases, that's the home front. Those are the core worlds there. If you can't protect... Again, the queens! Hold. The monarchy throws back the mass production of the Red Army. And Maru... No, not the time! I don't know what that says, but we'll worry about it later. Jimmy! We don't need the internet for this game. It was made in a different time. Meanwhile, the Hydras, the Lings, the Banelings continuing through. And 5 SCVs dead. The number dwindling. Finally enough bio to knock down the queens. But they'll take more than ever. He's rolling. He has Banelings and a Nidus. The medevacs are taken down. The third base is overrun. And the gold base is still very much endowed. Reynor holding on to it. The Banelings trickling one by one out of the Nidus like this is Zagara and Heroes of the Storm. Another 100 Zerglings. And we've been here before. I wouldn't be surprised if we're here again. But Reynor is maxed out with money in the bank. He's building the lurkers. He has the economy. Maru is... He doesn't have ghosts. He doesn't have liberators. That, possibly more than the actual state of the game on the map, that is the most important thing. Ghosts and liberators are the most efficient units, the vast majority of the time for Terran. They allow you to hold ground and take it back with a minimal amount of supply, relatively. Marines and Marauders, not so much. The value of the armies is actually in favor of Reynor, just the sheer cost of them. So, despite all of this, Maru might have 200 supply, but Reynor has full control of the game. Here come the Zerglings again. The Widowmine takes some of them with it, but not nearly enough to stop the attack. More Zerglings coming in. He split off some for the non-existent base down in the center. Forces another cancel. The army's coming back to defend, but more SCVs will die. Another Nidus on the way. And the Zerglings get in. They'll unburrow, realize the door's wide open. SCV count dwindles under the 50 mark. There are 40 Banelings. Enough lurkers to make it almost impossible. Another Nidus. And this bio ball is stepping onto the creep for what could very well be the last time. Lightning cloud on the back line. The Banelings evaporating everything. The Hydra's cleaning up the rest. And Maru has been torn asunder as the Italian Stallion strikes back in game number 2. An exhausting game, but a much more decisive one, as more than able to overwhelm. Maru did not go for the go. I think he was trying to do a similar tempo timing attack. I'm not talking about the incredible rapper, but instead trying to hit the 200 supply bio timing before Reynor had the Viper Lurker army. But it was too little and too late. And honestly, he played into his hand. That is Reynor's wheelhouse right there. That is his bread and butter biscuit. If you want to fight 200-200 all over the map, no one has played against Clem more, and I'm not sure if anyone else has a winning record against him. Reynor, one of, I think, maybe 2 players in the world who has a winning record against Clem. Cyril possibly being the other. So, I think the experience against Clem much more relevant here in that sort of game. We'll see if Maru is willing to engage him on that sort of strategic situation again. I have my doubts. I have lots of doubts and pet peeves. Too many to list here. I mean, I like to write them down. Just taking some notes. And then Pool first for Rain. A spicy choice. No gas, though. So, clearly, trying to throw things off here on White Rabbit. Adding the gas later. He's saving up the larva for 6 langs. It's a good old-fashioned Zerg rush. Though, not intended to win the game. Intended to carve out such an awkward situation that Reynor can follow it up pretty much however he wants. The lack of gas and the hatchery already on the way indicate that. I think the Zerglings will be across the map in time to either delay or even potentially cancel the second command center. Clearly, trying to avoid the Reaper pathing, and Maru, being a greedy Terran, did not send an SCV scout out. The Zerglings. Uh-oh. He's gonna have to pull the boys, and he will lose some of them. There's a queen on the low ground. Maru just now realizing it's too little. It might be too late. The Marine coming back. The boys are pulled immediately. Reaper scrambling back across the map. And so far, so good. That single Marine, he actually builds a second one. So far has only lost 1 SCV. It's getting worse. Gonna go back to try to fight. We can get a third one. A Reaper, he's just right-clicked on it. So, we gotta ask ourselves that question after all this. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Reynor building more drones back at home. He has successfully delayed the command center quite significantly. He's delayed the reactor for Hellions. Of course, he's delayed a big part of his own build. Reynor just now building his own third hatch, which is technically later than Maru's third command center, though not by much. And Maru, you can't just... He can't keep getting away with it. He builds 2 engineering bays before a starport. I mean, who's gonna stop him? There's 8 more Zerglings on the way. Not enough to be more than a kerfuffle at the moment. 12! That's a concern. That's more Zerglings usually than you'd build just to box out the Hellions. He may just try yet another counterattack. And if Maru could be easily found in the same scenario. Sent out with the units at the wrong time, unprepared. And again, this is so greedy. Like, he's invested so many resources in upgrades for units, which he's only going to have a single-digit number of for the next several minutes. In Marines and Marauders. And he probably won't have Marauders for many minutes yet. So... And the Zerglings will actually run in and get into the main. He splits the difference. The door's wide open. Oh, hero. He makes sure not to trigger the attack alert. And a couple Hellions will pop out at a fortuitous timing and prevent Maru from taking game-ending damage. But he got a full scout, and he saw the double engineering bay. So, Reynor He saw the double engineering bay, and I think he built a roach warren immediately. And he's not building at the front. This is not to wall off the Hellions. I think he's just gonna try to kill him. He already has the worker lead. He has 3 bases. It's not a massive risk, especially when you know for a science fact that your opponent does not have a starport. There's no banshees, and there's probably not gonna be any siege tanks. 6, 9, 10... I'm good at counting. Roaches on the way. And Maru has no ability to scout reliably. He has very few units. He has no bunker. This game's shaping up to be more one-sided than a Mobius strip. Even if he slapped down 2 bunkers right now, there wouldn't be enough Marines to fill them. So... well, on paper, there's absolutely no way for Maru to hold this. But we don't play on tabletop, despite that cool mini-game coming out. Or, miniatures game, sorry. I don't think mini-game is the correct way to abbreviate that. That conjures another sort of feeling. Well, here come the roaches. Just 5 roaches, that's not so bad. How about 5 roaches, 5 ravagers, and 34 zerglings? That's much worse. 1-1 is done for the Marines, but they don't even have stim yet, let alone combat shield. He's got 2-2 started. But the corrosive bile scattered around like an unruly frat party. And the Zerglings easily chewing through the SCVs, which are desperately trying to hold the front line. Reinforcements are continuing stutter steps underneath the orbital command. Building some more Ravagers mid-fight, just ignoring the rest of the Marines on the low ground, takes out the double depot, takes out the reactor, takes out the SCVs, and takes out Maru. In game number 3, Reynor goes to match point first. Despite the struggles in game number 1, 2 games in a row, he's been able to take control of the match, one more quickly than the other, and carry it through. And he only needs 1 more. Maru with blind and obscene greed. And it doesn't pay off. Because when he's doing something weird, as a great man once said, just go kill him. Which, still, a very viable strategy to this day. As we head to game 4, Tourmaline. I like how willing Reynor... he put, as soon as he saw the double engineering bay, that's when the roach warren started. Like, 2 seconds after, he went home, moved his camera back, and said, I know what's happening. Would have been devastating not to end it there, but Maru, at no point in that game, he already had 1 foot in the grave from the time the pool started. Another pull first. Fool me once. Alright, and this time it's gas. This time, it's a true Zerg rush. Will this be roaches? Or Zergling speed? TBD. I feel like Zergling speed is more likely, but... well, Maru SCV Scout. Really, an SCV Scout is usually the difference between taking significant to critical damage and taking almost none at all. This is entirely, or almost entirely, reliant on the sheer greed of not sending out 1 SCV. There's a reason why Clem almost religiously now sends out the SCV. Not just to scout if any shenanigans are afoot, but also to potentially block the 3rd hatchery, which is infuriating as Zerg, which makes it a good strategy. Like, but Reaper's headed across. And, well, Zergling speed will be much quicker than usual, but he's not just building a bunch of lings right off the bat. Adding some more in now. The Queen should be enough to deal with the first Reaper. He knows it's on the way across because of the Overlord. Third command center on the way, of course, from Maru. Of course, of course. Queen making her way downtown. Walking at normal speed. Sorry. And pulls off a gas. After exactly 100 more. So Reynor adds 100 more gas. Gives him an option for a lair when he needs it. Very interesting. Is he going to start the lair immediately, is the question. Maybe he wants to scout first, but just enough to keep those options open while maximizing his economy. The Reaper gets in. Maru will click on the gas, and he'll see exactly what he's dealing with. But unfortunately, Maru! Again! Oh, and the Marines just popped out of the wrong side of history. Oh, no! They will be ripped to shreds, I say. Maru. Caught yet again with the obscene greed. He's gonna flip over. Lucky that Reynor wasn't checking at that exact time for the flip over to the Hellions, but a Roachborn is on the way, though it is at the front, making it less likely to be for a big all-in follow-up. He got up the ramp and he saw the barracks. All right, he saw 2 racks and the factory. He knows what he's dealing with. And Reynor actually takes the front base as a third. A solid staging area for potentially a Roach timing. But also more vulnerable to direct attack, of course. You're just, I mean, neighbors, right? He doesn't know about the third CC, but it's implied. There's no way he'd have so few units if he didn't have a third CC. That's just how math works. Meanwhile, Evolution Chamber. And 5 Roaches on the way. Just Sloaches for now, but we'll see if Reynor wants to continue down the Roach Road, or if he takes the off-ramp to Lingbane. This map is quite wide open. There's not really much of a choke point between at the 3rd or 4th bases. There's no ramp to get in there. So Mass Roach Ravager can usually be effective if well-timed. Much more than, say, maps like Ruby Rock, for example. +1 Carapace is on the way, which covers everything. Besides buildings, though I think it should, but, you know, I digress. Double engineering bay, armory. And it's going to be the medevac Hellbat timing yet again from Maru. Had decent effect previously. Not great, not terrible. And definitely dictates the pace of the game, but it's Roaches for Reynor, so a bit riskier to say the least. The Hellions looking for an angle, but Reynor, he's not obtuse, so. The creep continuing to spread forward. The tendrils pushing past almost the halfway mark of the map now. And being very efficient with it because Reynor only has 3 queens. Against the Banshee-less style, no real starport threat. Queens are less relevant. Just enough to inject those hatcheries and then moonlight as some creep spreaders. But everyone has to work at least 2 jobs nowadays. I know, right? This economy. Not Susan. No. Don't complain. All right. But then we could work together and seize the memes of production. Susan, not now. Maybe not ever. I don't know. Sorry. Speed is done for the Roaches. +1 Carapace as well. And the Zergling's gonna try to sneak around the back simultaneously. There's a single siege tank, which a second one definitely going to make Reynor's chances significantly less viable here. Infestation Pit is on the way. Maru holding back and realizing he's dealing with the Mass Roach, so Mass Siege Tank is a clear counter. Infestor on the way. And a hive. 7-minute hive. Wow. The roaches chasing. Hellbat taken out easily, but covering for the Marines. What a save! 1-1's not done, so if 1-1 was done, I think that fight actually would go quite well for Maru, as Marines fire incredibly quickly. Drugs and guns are a potent combination. Reminds me of home. Oh yeah, brother. But with that extra weapon upgrade, they can help cut through the armor, but Reynor knew what he was doing, prioritizing the carapace on the roaches. They're really just a shield in order to... Not now! Jimmy! Why are we even connected to the internet? If I click this, is it going to ruin everything? Certainly hope not. I don't know what I clicked. But we're still going. Don't click on suspicious links. Only click on like and subscribe. But a doom drop flying past the Overlord. Reynor should be back at home to defend, and this will alert Maru that Reynor does have a hive completed already. And this is almost everything Maru has that could be easily picked up and dropped out. The siege tanks and some bio back at home. He's just going to be going back and forth. And the lack of anti-air really very clear here. This is restricted lair space. Yeah, and who's enforcing it? He's got a point, Brenda. Well, Maru playing the hokey pokey and dropping all about. But an ultra-less cavern in production for Reynor. As finally Big Daddy coming home. And in this sort of scenario where Maru is just now stretching out to take a fourth, and Reynor's been easily able to secure, well, 4 bases of his own, Ultras have a strong possibility of doing the damage. But if he waits too long, that window may close. But so far, no Ghost Academy. Any Liberators? 0. So, still a lot of opportunity for Ultras to be super effective, even against Marauders and Mines, and certainly against Marines. And Reynor is maxed out, so clearly looking to smash into this base. He has Vipers somewhere, but the Widow Mines gonna make quite a splash through. That's a spawning pool, not the right one. That's an interesting mix. Oh no, the Widow Mine's on the high ground, and he is successfully leading about 50 supply, maybe more Zerg by the nose, with just a single Widow Mine. 15 drones! Oh no. Oh, the Zerganity. And oh no, these are recharging. It's a disaster! 25 drones dead. It is a absolute economic shattering. It's... Wow. The Zergling counterattack will try to recoup some of the damage. But the Widow Mines on the way across the map will make them pay their toll in blood. 17 SCVs dead, but the Zerglings get into the main, and now Reynor is gonna deal it back in turn. But the damage is actually almost equal, though the cost, not so much. Ultras are incredible when you have map control and an economic advantage. They are much less so when you're behind on supply and economy. They can be cutted down one by one by one, and Reynor simply cannot afford enough Ultras to just drown the Terran in the sheer biomass. Chitinous plating is nearly complete. Is Ultra Speed queued up? No. Without Ultra Speed, it makes it that much easier. There's still no ghosts, but Maru is maxed out. This is that mine drop, creating a terrible situation for Reynor. This, I cannot stress. I'm 1/3 Zerg myself. All right, some of my best friends are Zerg. It's okay, but this is it feels really bad, man. Losing your booming economy just as you go for the most expensive composition. And now you're left with a lease you can't afford. This army requires you to be able to replace units quickly. It is not cost effective, but it is potentially supply effective. As long as you can reinforce, you can eventually batter down the planetaries and overwhelm the ground army. The parasitic bomb! He's not splitting the medevacs. The only anti-air is Vipers, and another parasitic bomb would take out so much. The Widow Mine. I saw a lot of Marines on the ground there afterwards. This is a tag team duo. As the Viper is slurping out. Does he get enough energy? Yes. Yes, he has enough. And the medevacs are quarantined this time. Maru paying much closer attention now that his life is on the line. But the Widow Mines are still scattered throughout the map. The Queen count. He gets one! One medevac taken down, but Reynor getting torn apart. I can't stress how perfectly timed that Widow Mine drop was. Not just the damage, but the timing was immaculate. Exactly when he needed to undercut the Zerg momentum. He could not have scripted that better. Even better, he just planned. This is not random chance. It's a decade and a half of professional experience. And now Reynor is left in the awkward spot of trying to build a... he's on a Bugatti budget. He's on a Bugatti expenses with an Accord budget. Did I get my cars right? I think so. But the Ultra, the Fungal, is incredible. But one Ultra is not enough. Those death sounds. It's like watching them die all over again. I mean, literally and figuratively. But wow, that Marauder. So dramatic about it. But more of the Ultras up to the north side. We don't mind taking it out. He just crashes in with the Banes. Multiple command centers can be taken out simultaneously as he gets jammed into the streets of the base. More Widow Mines cut down, targeted by the Ultralists. The massive Marauders. And again, Maru with the Marine Marauder medevac mine composition. No Ghosts, no Liberators. Yet he's been able to maintain so much momentum. High-sec auto-tracking and building armor on the way. The banks are dead even. The supplies capped at 200. Finally, a Spire will complete. And he's got +1 flyer attackers on the way. What are words? My tongue all tied up like it's trying to deal with Widow Mine drops, but yeah. Gross. Maru with the main brunt of his force to the south. The creep is desperately trying to saturate these bases, but looking mighty dehydrated out on the field. Did he ever get ultra speed? Yes, but it's not fast enough to deal with that sheer biomass. The Marauder count. He has 30 Marauders against just 2 Ultras. There are no Hydras to help pick it apart. The Zergling count isn't that high either. Reynor struggling to put it off on the field. Baneling's not very cost-effective. And backs off. Widow Mine might still get a shot. Eventually diffused. A few Corruptors. 5 Widow Mines and 7 Marauders in production. Just a sample of everything. Oh, but the good Fungals finally holding him down. And with the Corruptors, he has a chance to knock him out. Widow Mine around the corner. Changelings, I think, kind of helping Maru more than they are helping Reynor. Keep track of things here. The Baneling Mines underneath as well. Maru maintaining the production and now begrudgingly will build a Ghost Academy. Bane Mine takes out a few Marines. The Ultras badly bruised. There are only 3 Queens on the map to potentially transfuse them. And Reynor's starting to run low on larva. He only has 3 Queens for inject and not that many hatcheries. So the ability to refill his army is not guaranteed. Maru, on the other hand, has 10 barracks, 3 factories, and 3 starports. So production is not something that is a struggle for him. What a beautiful set of racks in the main. Scans all over the map. Some Zerglings will have a unfortunate meet and greet with a planetary over to the 3 o'clock, realizing that the economy is even worse than he thought. At least the disparity between them. The Ultras chewing through the front line, but the Widow Mine's thinning out. There's still plenty of Roaches and Ravagers. I don't know if he's rebuilt them or just hasn't lost that many. I think it's the second thing. He still has them maintained from earlier, which is quite impressive. The Marauders Somebody needs to be careful. Don't talk too loudly around that hatchery or it might fall down of its own accord. Where are the queens? Eventually it will go down. Wouldn't be surprised if the Viper accidentally ends up taking it out, but... Queen standing by. Greater Spire on the way as Reynor still with the bank. It really hasn't... In fact, Maru has lost. This is just not the endgame composition, despite the momentum. Remember, without the Ghosts and Liberators, Maru is trading away the units themselves. There is no fight that doesn't cost him dozens of supply of Marines and Marauders, despite how painful it's been for Reynor. Maru does not have the endgame composition, and Reynor's working towards it in a bit of a role reversal here, which is sometimes fun. I'm just saying. The Marines and Marauders still pin cushioning absolutely everything. The creep is almost non-existent outside the bases. Zerglings cutting off the reinforcements as Maru taking 3 out of 4 corners of a bingo strategy here. Still painful for Reynor, but he's still at 200 supply banking. These losses are superficial. He saw the worm sign of the infestor there. Parasitic Bomb, quarantines 1 medevac, Fungals on the front, Corruptors taking out the rest. Another Fungal on a big chunk of the biomass. And that hatchery has somehow lived and is slowly regenerating. And an important part of the money. He's almost mined out of it. I think it's almost not worth it to rebuild it anymore unless he's absolutely desperate, which we may get there, but not quite yet. Maru with 6 orbital commands. He's built going up to 14 barracks. Whatever. Close enough. Quite literally. Gonna build the planetary instead of trying to take out the Brood Zerglings. Meanwhile, another Fungal around the corner. 5 Broodlords on the way. The Widowmine still racking up some kills. They'll eventually will be taken out. The bottom right corner is eventually taken down by the Zerglings, and the Widowmines are cut off as well. 5 Broodlords in production. And Reynor again, reaching for that late game choice. But this time he has a lot in the bank and a lot of bases yet to mine. The Widowmines continue to be incredibly painful, but 'tis but a flesh wound. Losing Zerglings here and there has freed up supply to go Infestor Broodlord. Even though he only has 2 Infestors, there are 0 Ghosts and 0 Vikings. Maru immediately puts 2 in production. He is nearly maxed out, which is suffering from success right now. Gonna try to trade away some more of the army supply. The Broodlords on their own, I don't think there are enough Marines to challenge them. Which means they're completely uncontested as they grind forward. But now Maru dropping out. These Spore Crawlers doing terrible, terrible damage to the medevacs, taking out 2 of them already. Make that 3 full of units. He's certainly freed up a lot of supply here. Another painful fight. Nothing to take out the Widowmines. They might be enough to take out one of the Broods. 1 Broodlord eats, and there's still 4 Marauders in the main. Somehow annihilating the drones. 12 drones dead. Reynor's down to 60, but still 200 supply. Another incredibly brutal game. The planetary's down, but the Vikings are uncontested. The Broodlords will be taken out if they remain. Where are the Corruptors? A day late and $1 short, but another planetary fortress and 2 more command centers alongside it. Buy 1, get 2 free. Planetary will be taken down. The Corruptors engaging the Vikings, but the Vikings are winning the fight. They have +3 armor. So the Corruptors not taking him down so easily. But at least they'll box out for the Broodlords to escape. More Lings and Banes. A single Ultra. But Maru losing a huge chunk of supply. But Reynor realizes he's overextended. Another exhausting game. Wades through the corrosive bile. Reynor trying to take that 6 o'clock base. Again, for the however many time. He's only lost 2 hatcheries, which seems wrong, but that base down the center is held for the entire game so far, ever since he took it, which is a minor miracle. Here come the Broodlords, helping to deal with the Widowmines. The Broodlings triggering the Widowmines well before they can get in range of anything meaningful. But the Corruptor count is too damn low. The Vikings continue to be added on, and the Bio Ball is just grinding forward, and the Ultras aren't enough to stop it. The Broodlords have been removed from the field, trying to draw the Widowmines in. The Ultras left alone, the Roaches and Ravagers, barely anything to back them up, and another hatchery will be taken down. The mine's taken out by Corrosive Bile, and it is another minor miracle that the Roaches and Ravagers have survived thus long, but the Fungal is absolutely massive. He eviscerates a third of the army simultaneously, and Reynor plummets to a 20 supply deficit. Despite the battles, Maru is winning the war. Reynor has only lost 4,000 more resources, but this time around, Maru has mined 4,000 more minerals, though 3,000 less gas. Almost a direct flip of game number 1 on Ruby Rock. But Maru playing this war of attrition, and he's winning it. After all the smoke clears, he's spotted that infestor right on the edge of the scan, but that's all it takes. No edging allowed. Zergling counter to cut off the reinforcements. The Ultra is quite unwieldy in this scenario. A queen is taken down, and they're precious few to begin with. The Mines and Marauders. The Broodlords have not yet retaken their place. An orbital command will be ripped apart by the Adrenalings. I assume he has it. Indeed. The Ultras. The line of Marauders is just blasting through. And there's not enough Fungals to hold them down. The Zerglings get into the main. The engineering bays are effectively obsolete except for the tech requirement. Okay, calm down. Jeez. The Marauders dying dramatically, cutting across the field. The Ultras one step at a time. The concussive shells might not work on them, but they don't need them in order to take them down one by one. A clinic of Marauders stutter step around the corner. The Medivacs holding it all together, and again, the Fungal comes out, but it's too little, and it's too late. The Zerglings will force the pickup, one of the last queens. But the Monarchy, well, revenge! Was it worth it, Brenda? No. Queen dies unceremoniously. And Maru has brought it all the way. And I think we're going to game number 5. As the Bio Ball grinds through. Dozens of Marines and Marauders will die. But 2 Gs as Maru overwhelms the field. And with his Zerg-like Terran strategy, that Widowmine drop that completely undercut the economy at the perfect time. He rug-pulled him with the Widowmines. And Reynor never recovered. He never regained the initiative. The Broodlords were close to it. But Maru already had the production. He already had, I think, at the end he had 13 barracks, 3 factories, and 3 starports. He could replace his army just the way a Zerg can with all that larva. And Reynor unable to... this time around, Reynor may be too early on the tech switch. Trying to turn it around, but so close yet so far. Madness is the name of the next map in game number 5. Winter Madness, to be specific. And if you enjoy this particular brand of Winter Madness, it'd be awesome. You could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. And again, thank you to the SC Boys community, Netties, and the Thunderfire All-Stars for putting on this incredible tournament. You watched some of the matches from the live stage. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get them all from there, but hopefully from replays is still bringing you the intensity and the drama to make your day a little bit better. Thank you for watching. And now, it all gets decided here on Winter Madness. What a series. Absolutely exhausting. I'm tired, but maybe I'm just old. Porque no los dos. Imagine after that game and all the ones before it, being like, and now we'll do it again. At least there's only one more. And oh. Well. Bit lightheaded after that one, actually. That's not a good sign. Moving on. And we'll worry about that later. Well. No, I'm not going to the doctor. I don't have that many subscribers. I don't... Spawning pull at a normal time. Reynor with a couple pull first to varied success. Maru. Again, no SCV scout. He's gonna get away with it. The Reaper will be sent across the map. No Zerglings slipping in behind. If Maru was ever gonna break out that mech Terran strategy that he's been occasionally unveiling, which almost might be cliche in and of itself to break it out in Game 5, but Reynor already preemptively sent the drone, intentionally avoiding the Reaper, but since Maru doesn't send the SCV scout, it's less likely he's going to have everything in place to deal with it. Third command center. Factory's on the way. Wait, no, sorry. Autopilot. Let me use my eyes real quick. That's a barracks. Barracks in production. So 3, 2, 1, 1 will be the commitment. Keep as much pressure on as possible with the vulnerability of not having those early banshees. Which, what? No, wait. Okay, I keep getting surprised. He just keeps adding barracks. This time around, he's adding the barracks before the double engineering bay. But that's just 3 racks. My brain is in such autopilot mode that I assumed eventually it would be a factory. But no! We're going to stay on the ground floor of this tech tree. A whole bunch of Marines. An absolute classic for longer than Reynor's been alive. And maybe Maru by a little bit. Since the Brood War. Mass Marines to take on the Zerg. A staple strategy. And is there any way Reynor scouts this? There's no overlords even close. He doesn't even bother. Reynor's not bothering to send the overlords across, as so many Terrans will go out of their way, quite literally, to deal with it. So not risking the hit potentially to the economy, not risking the lack of vision back at home. Usually you want to keep them right on the edge of the creep, or near choke points, so you can see where the Hellions and Reapers are going. Then later on, they're just for spotting drops and attacks. It's still a choice, but... well, for all the fire and fury, Maru will fall back to the mass Marines. The Zergling got in and saw the second barracks. Yeah, incredibly important. Seeing the second... well, I guess he saw the amount of Marines. So not as important, but he saw another tech lab, which actually isn't much of a giveaway. Baneling nest, though, before lair. Making sure he has access to it. And it's going to be obscenely important, as he's dealing with unmedevaced Marines. Usually, if they're rushing medevac without as many Marines, banelings are less effective, because you can easily dodge them. You slurp them up into the medevacs and you just boost away. But that's not going to happen here. He's going to have a mass of Marines. Either he attacks early before the medevacs and he's at risk to the banelings, or he attacks with them, and then we're much later in the game with much better economies to work with. So, there's that starport on the way. I like how... what a great bookend. Game 1 was high economy, almost no rush. Game 5 will be the same. We're going to build up into these incredibly dangerous armies. And then once the action starts, it'll probably never stop. Until one of these two is dead. Burrow. Wow, I love it. Reynor, in the most high-profile matches, has used those... Remember when Scarlet used Burrow Banes against Bomber? 12 years ago? In fact, I think Reynor using Burrowed Banes against Cure, I believe, in the World Cup. Or was it Meisters of the Game? Either way, not now! Whatever's happening. Get battled out of my face. Was the most meaningful of modern Bane mines. And the Queens? Oh. Jennifer? Are you Edna, Sybil? It's nice to see you finally showing up. You weren't here last game. I was taking notes. Good for you, Brenda. That'll be helpful in the Hatchery Owner Association meetings. Don't be condescending. Oh, that means talking down to you, which we all have to do because we can't fly. Shut up, Sybil. This is why nobody invites you to anything. Technically, you don't invite anyone. We just kind of appear somehow. Anyways, through all the drama, the Marines and Marauders. No Marauders, but actually Marauders in production, which is kind of surprising at this stage of the game. Lings and Banes en masse, and Reynor actually has a supply lead, which is kind of crazy with this specific composition. Going to surround the Marines. He's got 78 drones. He has the booming economy, but he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Going through the Canyon of Death, in between the destructible rocks in the center of this map. Hellbats? Maru just building Hellbats out of the factory. He's got a nicely spread base once again. The Zerglings going to deal with the Hellbats and the coming out of the natural. No, it wasn't an accident. Instead, it was intentional. Things you dream you're... But the factory pumping out Hellbats to buffer here against the Massling Bane. Cheaper on the gas, but definitely without the potential of Widowmine. We saw how effective Widowmines were last game, so it's surprising to see Maru shy away from them. But it's Hydras, juggling the Hellbats in and out. The almost fully quarantining his third base. With supply depot so far is Maru. Both sides getting close to maxing out. 2-2 upgrades. Nearly complete. Maru's going to have a solid 2 upgrade advantage. Bearing down with nearly 200 supply. There are 21 Banelings, 12 Hydras, and almost 100 Zerglings after this next round. But here comes Maru. He knows what he's dealing with, and he's prepared to do so. The Queen's on the front line, but the Baneling's gonna roll through. He's on the creep. The move command Banelings making their way through the Marauders, but not nearly fast enough. He holds the line for now. The Marines microing back. Doing a great job of mitigating the Banelings so far, but the Queen's helping to hold, and the Zerglings cutting off reinforcements. Reynor with the counterattacks as always. This is effectively all in on Maru. It's an Octo-Rax timing. 8 barracks, only 65 SCVs with no more in production, no fourth command center rather. Kind of a little more macro-oriented twist on it, but still effectively all in. An infestation pit just now starting for Reynor. Both players almost stalled out on the mid-game economy, only slowly progressing forward. Maru with 3-3 upgrades, and Reynor with the infestation pit, as well as +1 ranged attack and +2 carapace. Still, quite a bioball being thrown around. Lurker Den is on the way. A few more Marauders will be cut off. The SCVs, he pulls the main command center. And fly, you fools. All the way to the third. The Zerglings are locked in. Will burrow down. Multiple burrows just to keep him busy. And the hive has begun. Maru has lost a lot of map control now. Reynor with 42 Banelings, which solves a lot of different questions. One including, why are there Marines and Marauders on my map? And how do I get them out? But the Widow Mines are scattered in. Drilling Claws is not even started, let alone done. Gonna easily deal with the mines to start. Zerglings cutting off more. Most of the bio is back at home. 3-3 is closing in for Maru, but much more dangerous is the hive for Reynor. If he gets to ranged lurkers, there's almost no answer to it. That command center, Maru trying to build a 4th command center, but his own unit's getting in the way. 10 lurkers in production. Convinced that if he can just hold this back for long enough, even if the lurkers don't have the range or burrow speed, it might very well be worth it. And I tend to agree, since you're asking. The Zergling count, still damn high. 79 of them, 31 Banes remain. The lurkers, I doubt he'll keep them on hold position, but he does. Oh my, he does. Will he unleash them? He does as well. Eviscerated the Marines and Marauders. Meanwhile, Maru wasn't looking at that moment. A strong army with the Marauders out in front, but the split is not good enough. The Banelings are crashing through. And Reynor will be able to pick apart the dregs. Still the bio army driven back by the lurkers. And Maru is thrown back. May lose 2 medevacs, some with units inside. Lurker range begins, but he didn't even need it to hold the line. And Maru's unit composition is not aging gracefully. Many of his units, not at all. The Zerglings and Banelings are chasing out the drops afterwards. Some more units rallied out down the center. Scared and alone. Without even a medevac to save them. More stuck in the center. Where do you go? Where did you come from? Terran-eyed Joe. The medevacs. The lurkers will pop up. And Maru clearly scrambling. But there's Zerglings cutting him off on the other side of the map. There's lurkers burrowed down the center. He rebuilt his main base? What happened there? How is there another... Either way. The Zerglings are overrunning the 3rd, the natural, the 4th base. He's dropping it on the lurkers, but he'll be cut to pieces in the process. And Reynor has held. He is overwhelmed, and he has eclipsed Maru. Reynor keeps it together and takes the series in a dramatic 3-2. Maru trying to drag multiple games to the extreme late game and successfully did so. But if Reynor is able to get that economy and wield it before the endgame composition comes together, I don't think there's a better Zerg at overwhelming in such a cinematic fashion. Reynor with a well-deserved, the Italian Stallion bringing us the distance. And I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. I hope it made your day, a big chunk of it, just a little bit better. Thank you again to the SC boys and the Thunderfire All-Stars Invitational. And if you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. Thank you again to our Mule Tier patrons. Maru could have used some more minerals as well, but Big Jiggy, Devin, Door, Kate, Mario, super glad you still enjoy. And I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So, thank you for watching. Jimmy picked out a video for you. If it's not very good, well, you know who to blame, but good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. I hope I made your day just a little bit better. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.